Had you ever wandered into a place that felt off? Perhaps it was an empty school hallway at night, a gas station at 3 a.m., or a quiet airport terminal just before dawn. These are liminal spaces, transitional areas that exist between two states of being. They're not meant to be occupied for long, and when stillness takes over, they evoke an eerie blend of unease and fascination. But why do these places feel so strange? Is it the emptiness, the disconnection from their purpose, or something deeper, something we can't quite articulate? Could it be that liminal spaces stir a primal memory, or confront us with truths we usually avoid? Today, we delve into the world of liminal spaces, why they unsettle us, how they resonate with our psychology and culture, and what they reveal about the transitions in our own lives. By the end, you might never look at an empty hallway or a flickering street lamp the same way again. What are liminal spaces? The word liminal originates from the Latin limen, meaning threshold. Liminal spaces are transitional zones. They exist on the edge, between two states. They are neither here nor there, neither entirely full nor completely empty. Their essence lies in being in between. Examples are easy to find: an abandoned mall, a stairwell leading both up and down, a hotel hallway that stretches endlessly. These spaces are designed for motion, for transition, yet when still, they feel unnatural. This disruption in purpose disorients us. We find familiarity in such spaces: a playground, an office, but it's laced with discomfort. Stripped of activity, they feel eternal, caught outside the flow of time. This contrast triggers tension, making these spaces feel both familiar and wrong. Psychological effects of liminal spaces: disorientation and isolation. Liminal spaces mess with the way we process the world. As pattern-seeking creatures, our brains are wired to arrange our surroundings into a logical framework. Liminal spaces, however, disrupt this flow. An airport is meant to be bustling, and yet, when empty, it feels like the absence of life itself. This phenomenon is tied to psychology's uncanny valley principle. Just as humanoid robots can feel unsettling because they're almost human, liminal spaces unnerve us by being almost but not entirely normal. This dissonance leaves us feeling uneasy, and our imagination fills in the gaps. Often with ominous interpretations, isolation amplifies this unease. A deserted office, a silent parking garage, a playground devoid of children all strip us of the comfort of being part of a group. Such humanless spaces spark survival instincts, triggering the fear of being alone in a potentially unsafe environment. The haunting illusion of frozen time. Another unsettling feature of liminal spaces is their distortion of time. These places seem detached from linear flow, existing in a perpetual state of waiting. Take an empty train station at 4 a.m., or an unmoving escalator, bathed in fluorescent light. These spaces don't just look lifeless, they feel as if they've been paused in a moment that will never end. Liminal spaces evoke a sense of eternity, stretching endlessly in spatial and temporal emptiness. This perception taps into existential fears. Are we, too, impermanent? How fleeting is our existence within the infinite span of the universe? This temporal liminality fascinates and terrifies in equal measure. Cultural roots and myths in liminal space. Liminal spaces are not solely psychological, they're embedded in cultural consciousness. Across mythology, folklore, and literature, transitions between worlds are often represented by spaces such as forests, crossroads, or caves. These are where boundaries blur, and the supernatural seeps into the natural. Modern media is rife with examples. Think of the infinite hallways of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, or the fog-laden streets of Silent Hill. These settings unsettle us because they feel like places where the rules of reality no longer apply. Liminal stages between our world and something otherworldly. Even everyday experiences carry this unease. Airports, for instance, hold an undeniable liminality. They are places where we leave one realm and prepare to enter another. temporarily untethered from the routines and identities of regular life. When the familiar becomes strange, few things are as disturbing as when the ordinary turns uncanny. An abandoned playground, a silent mall, or an empty parking lot flips comfort into something grotesque. These spaces aren't inherently free. They're emptiness that corrupts their meaning. Abandonment transforms the joyous or utilitarian into something eerie, charged with an unsettling stillness. This phenomenon reflects an inherent psychological tension. The safety we associate with the familiar is turned inside out, making us feel as though the empty mall or lifeless park is somehow wrong. Are liminal spaces haunted? Liminal spaces often feel as though they're haunted, not necessarily in a supernatural way, but by the weight of psychic residue. A deserted school hall seems to carry echoes of past laughter and movement. An abandoned hospital hums with invisible memories of lives lived. It's not that these places are truly occupied by ghosts, but they trigger a psychological haunting. They remind us of what once was, and their emptiness creates a contrast that feels heavy, charged with absence. This idea that spaces remember their used stems from our own minds filling in blanks with imagined presences, shadows of former life. Horror stories and films amplify this perception. Abandoned amusement parks, hospitals, or houses classic backdrops for ghostly tales popularize the haunting vibe of liminal spaces. Even skeptics feel a lingering unease in such places, as though absence itself has become a presence. Liminal spaces and the dream worlds, these unsettling zones, don't just inhabit our waking experiences, they creep into our dreams. Psychologically, transitional environments like hallways, staircases, and empty streets are common in dreams, embodying feelings of confusion or dislocation. Dreams are inherently liminal, as they bridge waking life and the unconscious. They reflect uncertainty, exploration, and change, mirroring the qualities of liminal spaces. A dimly lit hotel corridor or a never-ending airport terminal carries the logic-defying structure of dreams, where the impossible feels strangely plausible. This quality makes liminal spaces feel dreamlike even when we're awake, dragging us into an uncanny valley between the real and the surreal. Digital. Liminal space. The concept of liminality has seamlessly transitioned into the digital world. Abandoned websites, empty online forums, or pixelated web pages from decades ago evoke the same sense of unease as physical liminal spaces. Think of glitchy game levels or forgotten virtual environments where the textures flicker unnaturally, suggesting something is off. These digital liminal spaces feel frozen in time, untethered from the present snapshots of a bygone internet era. Movements like weirdcore or dreamcore explore these aesthetics, crafting surreal environments, blending nostalgia with unease. With distorted familiarity, they mirror the psychological tension of physical liminal spaces. The tension between comfort and fear, a fascinating paradox, defines liminal spaces. Alongside the fear they evoke, they can bring comfort. The stillness of an empty hallway or the quiet of a deserted street offers an introspective calm. These spaces strip away distractions, giving us the rare chance to pause and reflect. However, this same stillness can quickly turn unnerving. Without society's reassuring noise and motion, these spaces remind us of how vulnerable we are in the face of the unknown. They're places where the normal rules don't apply, thresholds to possibility, but also threat. Existence as a liminal space. At its core, human life is fundamentally liminal. We are constantly transitioning between past and future, childhood and adulthood, one life stage to the next. Liminal spaces reflect this reality back at us, reminding us of the fleeting and transitional nature of existence. This is likely why these spaces resonate so deeply. They are metaphors for those moments of uncertainty when we exist in between jobs, relationships, ideas, or even identities. The role of nostalgia in liminal space. Liminal spaces often evoke nostalgia, but of a particular kind, one tinged with unease. A dimly lit school hallway or an empty mall feels familiar, as though tied to distant childhood trips or long-forgotten routines. Yet, their emptiness highlights what we've lost. This phenomenon, sometimes called anemoia, nostalgia for a time one never lived, underpins the strange familiarity of liminal spaces, as though they belong to a collective memory shared by all. The creative power and cultural relevance of liminal space artists, writers, and filmmakers have long drawn upon liminal spaces for inspiration. Their ambiguity offers a blank canvas, ideal for stories of transformation, mystery, and existential exploration. Think of the eerie Overlook Hotel in The Shining, or David Lynch's surreal suburban streets. These spaces reflect disorientation, while inviting rich symbolic interpretation. Why do liminal spaces feel so profoundly unsettling? Because they hold up a mirror to our transient existence. They remind us that life is a constant state of becoming, a passage between what was and what will be. While they evoke unease, they also offer perspective, the beauty of change, the opportunities of uncertainty, and the necessity of transition. The next time you find yourself in an empty hallway or a quiet terminal, take a moment to absorb its stillness. It's in these in-between spaces, both literal and metaphorical, that life's most compelling questions emerge.